Are experiencing low voltage? Turn off the main switch in your home. Do not touch wet appliances. You feel only NEMA can give safety tips? Well, SKELEC can too. So be sure to stay tuned to SKELEC's Facebook page and website for updates about the outages and restoration. For emergencies, our contact numbers are 465-2013, 661-2013, and 600. I repeat, 465-2013, 661-2013, and 600. Remember, with SKELEC's hurricane safety tips, together we can weather the storm.
Reliable and responsible. SKELEC is here for you. Powering our community.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Power Talk. I am your host, Patrice Harris, Corporate Communications Manager at SKELEC. Power Talk is a radio program brought to you by the St. Kitts Electricity Company Limited, where we share with you all of the latest updates and happenings at SKELEC. In this month of June, we have recognized the start of the hurricane season, the Atlantic hurricane season, and SKELEC, being the sole provider of electricity in St. Kitts, we ensure that we are prepared and we promote preparedness for our customers. So today I have with me the General Manager of SKELEC, and we're going to discuss SKELEC's preparations for hurricane. Good morning, Mr. Williams. How are you?
Good morning, Ms. Harris, and good morning to everyone hearing the sound of my voice. It's indeed a pleasure to be here with you again on Power Talk and to share with you what happens at SKELEC as we prepare for the hurricane season. As you're aware, the hurricane season begins on June 1st every year and extends all the way down to October, November of every year. So we have a good 6 months ahead of us where we have to be cognizant of the fact that at any time a storm can be approaching us, and that storm could be the one that causes the damage to the system.
And not only a storm, any sort of severe weather conditions.
That is true, because in the past we have seen some what we locally call squalls.
Squalls, okay.
Yes. Come through, and they have caused damage as well. It's nothing real. It's a tropical storm, just a big wave, and they come through and they cause a lot of damage. So you are correct in that.
So what we're gonna start by having a conversation about is how SKELEC prepares for hurricane season. What are we on the lookout for? What are we ramping up? What do we do to prepare for the season?
Okay, so even though the season begins the 1st of June, our preparation is year-round. We do a number of maintenance on the overhead, on the ground, and the generation plant. But coming closer to the hurricane season is when we pay particular attention to our building infrastructure as well as vegetation management. So even though the vegetation program is done throughout the year, coming on to the season, that's when we really ramp it up, make sure all the lines are cleared, make sure all the substations are accessible. We do inspections on the roofs of all the building, all the structures. We got a structural engineer come in to do the necessary tests and inspection of all the buildings, downtown Central Street, the power station, and all the other auxiliary buildings, including the water department annex, where corporate communications and internal audit are housed. And we have a new building added to that checklist, which is the front garden building. That's where safety and security department is located up on the industrial site. So we are going to do, we have initiated all the inspection of those buildings to make sure that everything is ready to go for the hurricane season.
So when I first joined SKELEC, I saw we were working on a hurricane plan, and it is something that we work on every year, very ironclad. Tell us about how this plan assists with not only preparation but the restoration effort given the protocols for hurricanes.
Now, the hurricane plan is a standard document that has been prepared every year for the hurricane season. It lists all the potential caterers that can be used, all the potential heavy equipment, operators who we can call in to assist. It lists our protocol pre, during and post storm, what you on the notice of an event, what is to be done, vehicle distribution, who is going to take care of what area. During the storm is usually hunker down, everybody just shelter where you are and wait for that call for post storm activity. Now, the post storm activity is when you would have most of the activity. So all the teams would have been given vehicles and geographical location assignment. So post storm, everyone would then go out, do the inspection of the area, make a list, come back to the main point so that we can update the SKELEC representative who is in the NEOC, which is the National Emergency Operations Center at NEMA. That's essentially the hub during disasters. So our team will go out, do the necessary scouting and send all that information in, which would feed up ultimately to the leaders of the Federation for the assessment of the post-strike damage.
Alright, so essentially most of SKELEC's work happens after a storm has passed. You mentioned earlier about vegetation management. I'm not sure people instantly understand what that means. But I want you to explain the importance of it, and we have people who engage in it privately, as in get up themselves and do it, and we want to discourage that. So what's the right thing to do, and what is vegetation management?
Alright, so vegetation management is what we locally will say cutting bush. Essentially cutting all the trees, trimming them off the lines, making sure all the grass is cut so that you can access the substations. If there are any vines or wisps growing up, you cut them down. So it's just essentially cutting vegetation. So we give it the fancy word, fancy name, vegetation management, just to give it a little bit of class instead of just saying, oh, you're coming to cut bush. But essentially that is all you're doing. So we have a few contractors who are employed by SKELEC to do the vegetation management, and one of the things that persons have to do to qualify to be a contractor, you must have a business license, you must have some sort of personal protective equipment, PPE, for your staff, hard hat, gloves, and you must have some of the basic equipment to perform your job. All the technical aspects in terms of knowing where the lines and the wires are, especially for the underground substations, SKELEC takes care of that. We point it out to you, and you as the contractor just go out and you do that. So we have right now 4 contractors hired to do the vegetation management around the island, and if needs be, our SKELEC staff would assist. There might be some trees that are so tall that they can't get through, which would require the service of the bucket truck, but everything else, the contractors are responsible for that vegetation management. Now, in emergency purposes, if our teams do have to go out, we too are equipped to carry out that function as well. We have all the chainsaws, the machetes and everything required to cut trees if we need to as well. So we are trained to use the equipment, and in the interest of time for us, we hired contractors because there are so much other maintenance issues that have to be taken care of, that we deploy our teams to deal with the maintenance, and then the contractors focus on the vegetation. The entire vegetation program is handled by a safety and security department, and we have the manager and a superintendent in charge of the entire operation.
So it's a very big undertaking, and from time to time we get calls, even on this program, about trees in the lines where I live, and people go up on top of their fence, or they take a ladder, they go up and they want to cut the trees because SKELEC isn't coming fast enough. Let's take the opportunity now to discourage that and explain why that might not be ideal, and direct the customers where to call or what to do.
Okay. Now, if this has happened in the past 6 months, I totally understand, because we went through a whole procurement process for the hiring of the new contractors, and I know during that time some of the vegetation would have grown very tall, but we asked persons safe to take into consideration safety first. If you are going to be cutting vegetation in areas where there are no lines, by all means, go ahead at in a safe, I won't want to say at your own risk, but in as safe manner as possible. But once you become, once you come in an area where you have electricity lines or wires in general, because it might not be electricity, but it might be flow cable or city Wi-Fi, you must pay ultimate caution. And my advice to you is to call in the necessary teams that need to be notified, so that they can be there to either perform the work on your behalf or supervise while you do the undertaking. Because if the vegetation is in your yard, it is your responsibility to get it done. SKELEC can only assist. We're not mandated to come in your yard to cut the bush for you or to cut down the tree, etc. So once there are no lines in the area, by all means, do it as safely as possible. But once you have any type of utility wire, then it might be best to contact the different utilities so that they can oversee the cutting of the tree.
Very good. Now, as we speak about hurricane preparation, we are aware that SKELEC would have had some reliability issues within the last 2 to 3 months, and I want to take this opportunity to more or less reassure the public that our hurricane preparation is more or less secure, that we have been engaged in hurricane preparation. We don't want to send any alarms that, okay, storms are going to be coming and SKELEC isn't prepared, because we are preaching preparation. So how do we reassure the public?
That is true. It's very simple, actually. The issues that we've been having with reliability are all centered around the power station. It's a capacity issue. The demand of St. Kitts is going such that we are not at this moment able, well, at this current moment as we're speaking right now, we are able to meet the demand. But some months prior, we had some critical breakdowns at the plant, which we were not able to meet that demand, and we had to embark on a load shedding initiative. So we are at that point now where our capacity is such where we are able to comfortably meet the demand of the Federation, but we see a very interesting thing happening. So when the peak hours of the day would be between midday and say 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we now see that happening in the night. So because of the climate change efforts, well, let me not say efforts, realities that have taken place, a lot of persons have gone out and bought AC units. So when they're home at night now, we are seeing a night peak between 7 to 9 p.m. equivalent to what we're seeing at midday. So all in the night, 9 o'clock, we are seeing 27, 28 megawatts, when previously we would be seeing 23 and 24. So we see a significant increase in the night peak, and we attribute that to the conditions in the atmospheric conditions, the climate change conditions, and the fact that a lot of persons to combat the heat have gone out and purchased ACs and everything. So that is one of the major issues. As it relates to the infrastructure, the island-wide infrastructure, we constantly seek to do maintenance in the areas where we would have some of the older poles, some of the rotten poles. We change them out, we upgrade the infrastructure, we pay keen attention to the areas that have sea blast, because the sea blast deteriorates that infrastructure twice as fast as the areas where you wouldn't have that much sea blast. So we are constantly doing maintenance in the field to ensure that all the infrastructure is in tip-top condition. So from a reliability standpoint, the concerns that we would have had, say, up to a month or two ago with the generation capacity, we are well beyond a level of comfort as it relates to that, but by no means are we out of the woods, because we are working with engines that are some of them are well over 30 years old, and the lifespan of a generator is usually between 20 to 25 years. So we could see we have a couple generators at least 10-15 years over their lifespan. So there are a few initiatives that have taken place. We have seen the government of St. Kitts and Nevis sign an agreement with the Saudi Fund for Development for $40 million for the procurement of 18 megawatts of 2 new dual fuel generators that are going to be able to run on diesel and LNG. Once we secure a reliable source for LNG, we would then switch over to LNG. So we can see some new generators coming within the next 12 to 18 months.
So what you have mentioned, Mr. Williams, I hope that has provided some reassurance that was a capacity issue and still very volatile, because the peak still continues to climb.
Correct.
We still haven't gotten to the hottest day of the year as yet. We know that it's going to be a hot summer, and with the projections for hyperactive hurricane season, you often see increase in temperature. So we know that these are the challenges that we continue to face, but we want you to know that our hurricane preparation continues. And while we're here, you spoke about reliability, so let's talk about resilience. Let's talk about SKELEC's effort to ensure that the utility is resilient, is able to be restored quickly after any sort of severe weather conditions, including storms. What are some of the things that we have worked on and long-term plans that we have set out?
All right, so resilience. Now, our number one asset at SKELEC is always going to be our people. So one of the first things that we have done is to increase the training to the staff. We recently had the Linesman Rodeo, where we sent over some teams to Antigua to participate in safety and best practices. We came back to St. Kitts. We put on a local rodeo to display a lot of those lessons that we have learned. This has been passed throughout SKELEC to all the lines persons. I have to say lines persons because we have some women who are showing interest in climbing poles now and doing work as a utility line person. So I have to then switch my language for that purpose. So training the staff, that's number one. That's one way to build the resilience. And then innovation is always the other one. Speaking to suppliers, finding out what the new technologies are, implementing them, hardening the system. Where we can put lines on the ground, we have gone forward and done that. We have built some capacity in that area, where before we might have had one or two guys who are able to do, say, underground work. That team has increased significantly, and we have plans to do more training in that area. So the biggest part of resilience is actually moving your overhead lines on the ground. We know that is costly. We have some of it in our budget, every year, and we just chip away at one piece at a time until eventually we will get the island, the entire island, 100% on the ground. We are about 40% right now, and every year we plan to put about 5% or more on the ground until we get the entire infrastructure on the ground, which would then make the system a lot more resilient.
Okay, Mr. Williams, I want you to speak specifically to which areas are feeders that are on the ground presently.
Okay, feeders on the ground right now, the entire Bastia South feeder, that's on the ground. The Bastia North feeder is on the ground, with the exception of the Bastia North extension, which goes from Buckley's to West Farm. The Bayfords feeder is significantly on the ground. That's the St. Peter's area, all the way up to Cedar Grove, the Frigate Bay area, all the way down to the Southeast Peninsula. That is on the ground. Port Zante, Newtown, industrial site, Port Zante. Yeah, all those feeders are on the ground.
Okay, and I think the next area would be is it the Keon feeder?
Yeah, it would be part of the Keon feeder is on the ground, and part of Sandy Point is on the ground as well. But it's just to improve the coverage in that area to include the entire feeder.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Lewis, as we're speaking about hurricane preparation, we continue to encourage our customers to be prepared for the storm, because once they're prepared, their comfort level will be increased, and we're hoping that you'll have a higher level of understanding for how restoration will work. What are some tips that we can share with the customer about their own preparation, as we've spoken about SKELEC's preparation, and how can we help to manage the expectations of our customers during a storm? Sometimes our customers can become naturally, what's the word I want to use, naturally passionate about the restoration of their power, and it is our duty to explain how it works, how the restoration works, what's happening, so that we can get our customers to manage their expectations as to how the restoration will work. So while you answer that question, I'll open up the phone lines and get persons to give their opinion, ask questions, feedback. How to help customers manage their expectations.
Alright, so the first part of it is to always have a plan. And your plan should always include your home inspection. Have an inspection of your roof or your windows or your doors. Make sure everything is up to code, so that if we do receive any storm or disturbance, that your home itself would be secure. The other thing to do, the vegetation, make sure all the trees are trimmed from around your house. You have no debris in your yard that can be picked up by the wind and become missiles to break windows and cause damage to, vehicles, equipment that is around your house, etc. When it comes to restoration, is not our procedure is that we do not shut down the power station. The protection out in the field is sufficient, so that if there is an area that becomes damaged, that area will self-isolate, and then after the storm, that's when we work on restoration. Now, when it comes to restoration, there is priority at health centers and hospitals. Those are one of the first priorities. Second priority is going to be the wells, the water system, the water pump, because immediately after a storm, one of the main things people need to have is access to water, so you could do any cleaning up that needs to be done. And then from there, we look at, okay, which are some of the easier places to develop, and because our system is somewhat like the wheel on a bicycle, we start from the center and we work our way outside. Now, a lot of people would say that, oh, that ain't gonna work for me because I always on the end. Unfortunately, that's just how the system is. We have to start from the power station and work concentrically away from the power station until we are able to get to every single customer. So it's not that we are deliberate in what we do, but indeed we are deliberate in what we do because it's a process. We're not trying to be vindictive to any particular customer, but we must move in a methodical way that is safe and exact for us to complete the restoration as necessary.
One of the things I always preach, we have a caller. All right, let's take this caller. Good morning, caller, you're live.
Hello.
Hi, good morning.
The partners are Flo, the Cable, Marriott, Carrie Breweries, and National Bank.
This is something on the television. I don't know.
Hello.
Oh, okay. I don't know. This is SKELEC's Power Talk radio program. I don't know what exactly is a question. It sounds like you're answering a question for a prize or something, but this is not for this program. Okay. All right. Do we have any other callers, JQ? No. Okay. One of the things that I try to help to explain to customers is that we restore power only when it is safe to do so. We are not trying to endanger the lives of any of our staff just because, hey, everybody needs power back. Safety is the #1 priority at SKELEC. Sometimes, based on where the storm passes, there are some areas that will have a greater impact than others. As much as is reasonably possible, we try to restore the largest amount of customers that will take the least amount of time.
Correct.
So there is a process that we take, very methodological, as Mr. Williams mentioned earlier, and we are very intentional about how we restore power. So that requires your patience. Some of the things that are very comical to me, sometimes we have a storm and somebody will say, oh, well, the storm passed Antigua 2 and Cora didn't go. But it's so many different factors that we have to take into consideration. As Mr. Williams mentioned, some areas are underground, so obviously their damage would not be as significant as the areas where most of the infrastructure is external and overhead, where it's going to be more susceptible to weather and climatic conditions. So I just want persons to understand this. I want persons to take the opportunity to interact with and engage with SKELEC's hurricane preparedness information, awareness campaigns that we have. Go on our Facebook page, go on our YouTube page, go on our website, look at the information that we're sharing so that you can get a better understanding. Go and look at the feeder map to see which feeder that you're on, because restoration will take place based on feeders. Yes, from time to time there will be changes, but we try our best to keep you as updated as possible. So we encourage you to pay close attention to SKELEC's media, the media houses that carry information based on SKELEC, and to SKELEC social media pages. We encourage you to have your own backup chargers, and if it's possible to get a generator. Sometimes people are like, oh, why are you sending us to go and buy a generator? Depending on the severity of the storm, it might take a very long time for power to come back. It's just the reality of the situation. And the business continuity, life has to continue. And so we encourage you, whatever investment that you can make, because we don't know what the damage can be after a very severe storm. Whatever investment you can make now to secure your comfort and convenience at that point in time, we encourage you to make that investment. We're going to wrap up the program now, Mr. Williams. We are out of time, so I'll give you an opportunity to give some parting words.
Well, I just want to thank everybody who is hearing my voice right now, for the opportunity to present again today. It's going to be a very active season this year. In the past, we have been very gracious and have been spared from any severe damage. When we think about the type of damage we've seen from Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Irma, and Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas, we have not seen that level of damage here in St. Kitts, and we continue to ask God's mercy on our beloved Federation. But it's not a matter of if it will happen, it's just a matter of when. Maybe this year could be the year. So preparation is the key. We ask everybody to make sure you do all your pre-storm checks, so that during and post-storm events would go very smoothly after that, because it's best to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. For the staff at SKELEC, again, I would like to say thank to each and every one of you for your hard work and diligence in performing your duties daily. It really does not go unnoticed. And year after year, season after season, you are called upon to do your Herculean effort, or put out your Herculean effort in ensuring that our customers continue to get a safe and reliable source of electricity, a source of energy to carry out their daily needs. And we're just hoping once again that everything goes well for this upcoming hurricane season, and that we are not challenged too much in any event that occurs in the Federation of St. Kitts Nevis.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams, for joining us, and thank you to all of the members of the public who have tuned into this radio program, whether it is via radio or via YouTube or Facebook. We appreciate your support. Always remember that SKELEC is the nation's leading utility provider, and we are here to weather the storm together, and be assured that we are your power partner. So thank you, and we'll see you next month when we come back for another edition of Power Talk. Bye-bye.